Greetings, everyone. I'm Neville Johnson. I'm co-founder of Johnson & Johnson in Beverly Hills. We do sophisticated litigation and entertainment business, libel and defamation, amongst other things. I have two distinguished panelists here. I've got Paul Kiesel, who's a nationally recognized attorney with decades of experience representing consumers in complex litigation, including personal injury, class actions, and environmental cases. And his firm is particularly known for doing the priest abuse cases. He's an early adopter of legal tech insight into building and sustaining a successful modern law practice. Steve Mindel is practicing family law and operates one of the Southern California's largest family law firms. Since opening in 1996, FMBK has grown to over 20 attorneys, 3 office locations, 40 employees, and he's active in bar associations, et cetera. I should mention for the last 3 years, he's been one of the top 10 super lawyers as well. So it's an interesting topic today, which I've never seen before, and it's about time to do it. I know that Steve Mindel is a master at marketing, and why don't you tell us how you do it?
Well, Neville, thank you very much. What a wonderful introduction. I don't know, Paul, there was a little bit of feedback coming. I don't know if it was yours or Beverly Hills Bar, but now it seems to be settled down. If anybody hears it, holler up at us. Well, Neville, I got to tell you, it didn't start out being a 20-plus attorney law firm with offices in West Los Angeles and Calabasas and Pasadena. It started out the law offices of Starving Steve. And each of us are going to give a little bit of our basic background. So, bear with us a little bit and we'll get into some micro detail in about 10, 15 minutes. But how I started, when I went to law school, I had no thought I would ever be a family law lawyer. In fact, I was sales manager at K-Rock and got into law school and went to law school. And I thought I was going to come out and be some kind of mergers and acquisition guy. First job out of USC Gould was to be at Shepherd Mall and Richter in Hampton, practicing with my closest 150 friends, which, as you know, my personality, Neville and Paul, that didn't play very well for me. I was bored being the 13th attorney on the Wicks bankruptcy case. I remember my primary job was coffee, and I knew every person in the room if they took cream and sugar, or took it black. And that was my job. And I was bored out of my mind. My godmother was a judge up in Fresno. She's one of the first women judges, so she fought like hell to create her career. And I would call whining about being the coffee boy at the meetings. And she said, go volunteer somewhere. So I volunteered at the LA Free Clinic. I hadn't even taken community property in law school. And the next thing I know, I'm training all of the attorneys at the LA Free Clinic on doing family law. Fast forward, 1990, I opened up my practice. And as I said, it's the law offices of Starving Steve. I had rented a 12 by 14 office. And my rent was $1,000 a month. And I think my malpractice insurance was a couple $100. And that's how things started. And people say, well, how did you get clients? You were doing mergers and acquisition, corporate work. So how did you end up getting clients? How did you do all these things? And these are the things that we're going to talk about today. But essentially, I took a route which is very different from the route that you took or the route that Paul took, and that I went into an office thinking I was going to do small M&A, which I did. People would send me $5, $10 million deals, $15 million deals that the big law firms didn't want to do. But I came up with another idea, which is I was in a suite. It wasn't one of those barrister suites, but it was a guy who had a couple extra offices. And so he was subletting the offices. And so I went to all the different attorneys and I said, hey, I'm not a litigator, don't know much about it. Love to learn about litigation. If you've got excess litigation, I'll charge you half of whatever my hourly rate was. So in 1990, when I opened up my shop, my hourly rate was $100 an hour. So I charged the attorneys $50. I'd go into their office on Friday, hand them a timesheet. I did 12 hours of work, give me $600. They'd write me a check. I'd be great. And what I learned from that was I got to do a lot of different practice areas. One of the guys was an insurance bad faith plaintiff's lawyer. So I did a lot of insurance bad faith work. I did a lot of cumulus counsel arbitrations. Another guy was a personal injury attorney, and he wanted somebody to do his binding arbitrations. I even got to do a jury trial for him all by myself, which was kind of cool. And and then I started to develop staff, and I still had my 12 by 14 office. And at one point, I think it was around 1992, 93, my wife walks in and she says, "You do realize there are 3 people working in your little 12 by 14 office. Like maybe you should get a secretary bay and maybe get a second office," that type of thing. So that's kind of the humble beginnings of FMBK. The humble beginnings are when I went to law school, didn't think that I would ever become a family law lawyer. When I started volunteering somewhere, I found a passion because I obviously did not have a passion to be the coffee boy. And from that, I developed a career and a hell of a great practice.
All right, Paul, take it away.
So I'm on the polar opposite of Steve Mindel, which is helpful to hear. When I was 6 years old, if you said to me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I would have said, "I want to be a personal injury trial lawyer." My family had a close friend who was a personal injury trial lawyer, and he came to our house and told these amazing stories about people who were shot and how he helped them, and people who suffered car accidents, how he helped them. And it dovetailed medicine, which I loved but couldn't work with my hands, and the law, which was always interesting to me. And so I knew very early on, this is exactly, if I could have written my dream, I'm living my dream today. This is what I had anticipated was going to happen. It was not a straight line from here to there. That's for sure. But I'm literally living what I expected to be doing. So when I went to law school, it was exactly where I intended to be. And so in 1984, I clerked for a small firm. It was Hoffman, Slater, and Slater. It was literally 2 blocks from where my building is today. We were at 8693 Wilshire Boulevard. And I was there for my 3rd year of law school and had really interesting cases that we were working on. He had great, fascinating, interesting injury cases. We had a client raped by a Los Angeles police officer. He stopped her for driving under the influence. She was. He drove her home, and he proceeded to rape her. And she brought an action against the department and against the officer. And when I came into the practice in 84 as a law clerk, the city was moving to sever the cases, have the cop tried separately from the city. And the argument was that the city was not stopped from relitigating the issue of the rape, because as an employer, you're not on the hook for what an employee does. The employer had the right to say, he didn't rape her. We have a right to defend ourselves and say the rape didn't occur. And so I said, fundamentally, that doesn't make sense to me. And so I wrote the motion opposing the severance. And Judge O'Brien, on the 8th floor of the Mosque Court building at that time, granted the motion and severed the cases. And I just fundamentally felt that that was wrong. So I took a writ. And ironically, the writ was granted by Justice Lilly, who was herself a legend in the legal community. And so in my last week of law school, I went to argue the writ to reconnect the cases together that had been severed. And I appeared in front of Justice Lilly, and my boss said, if it please the court, we'd like to have our certified law clerk make the presentation to the court. And Justice Lilly looked down and said, "Mr. Kiesel, I'm sure you're a lovely man, but we'd like to hear from the trial lawyer. So, Mr. Slater, it's on you." And there was no way Slater could argue this case. It was a complicated, interesting theory of law that only a 3rd-year law student could come up with. And so I learned a valuable lesson that day, Steve. So Van had no idea what the issue was, how to argue it. He stood up, he said, "It's been fully briefed, folks. Do you have any questions?" They had no questions, and he sat down. And the city attorney got up, and they pummeled her for the next 30 minutes before ultimately reconnecting the cases, granting the writ, and the rest is history. But that's sort of a way to know that it's about being able to take risks, to be willing to step out there in a place that you might not be so comfortable in, and you can grow your practice by taking those opportunities each and every day. And so I'll talk more specifically about how you can get that done, the things I've done that got me there. One note, I guess. I wanted to be a product liability attorney, but nobody in 1985 or 86 was going to send a first or second year lawyer a product liability case. But in 1984, the year I was third year of law school, the California lemon law came out. It was the second lemon law in the country because Connecticut was number one, but Sally Tanner passed legislation that had a lemon law in the state of California, product liability, non-injury, but nobody knew what to do with them. And so I started to take cases in 1985 for individuals. Now, of course, now it's the rage of practice, but in 1985, there were 6 lawyers around the country, around the state, doing lemon law cases. And I organized us all together as a group. And over the next 2 years, I built a really big practice of clients who were sending me their lemon law cases. They were paying a retainer of $5,000 because I couldn't take on a contingency fee. I needed to produce some income. So I was taking $5,000 per client to bring their lemon law cases. But every single time, the manufacturer paid back the $5,000 retainer and then the fees I had on an hourly basis. And I took that practice, which was just developing a reputation in a unique practice area, that people then began to think of me for years and years to come for product liability cases that emerged into a much more substantial practice involving injuries and products than just vehicles that were defective. But that's, Steve, how I kind of built my early practice, was having a discrete area of law that other people did not practice in that generated significant referrals into the business. Neville, back to you.
Yeah, Neville,
so
tell us how you did it, because
I wanted to.
how do you go from being a lawyer to representing all the most important cases against the entertainment industry? How does that just randomly happen?
Okay, so I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 12. When I was 18, I wanted to be in the music business because I was crazy about rock and roll. And I started off and went in law school, really thought I was just going to be negotiating contracts for musicians. I was so interested in it and wanting to learn that I audited Professor Nimmer's copyright class at UCLA when I was in law school. When I got out of law school, I got a job doing, well, some litigation and a lot of contract work. That job ended, and I had been a public defender law clerk. So right at that time, my number came up, and they were excited to have me. And I went there for a year and did criminal law and was in court every day and did like 100 trials. And then I got poached and worked for a firm in Century City for about a year. And then third year out of law school, I started my own firm. 5th year out of law school, Yoko Ono hired me, and all I did was Beatles for several years, figuring out everything that had to do with John Lennon and his business. And then a client walked into my door who had some litigation in the entertainment business, and I taught myself how to do it. And it was very much a struggle because they didn't have the Rudder Group at that point. But I started to do it, and I found that I liked it more because it was interesting. Whereas in the entertainment business, it was the same contract over and over again. You had no leverage. Clients didn't like to pay and weren't loyal, et cetera, et cetera. So now we're going to get into the meat of this today. I'll give you a couple things that I would say how to grow a practice. And the number one thing is networking, and that's what they don't teach you in law school, and that's what everybody has to do. I didn't network so much the first 20 years of my practice, and then I did, and it just absolutely took off. The other thing they don't teach you in law school is referrals, and that's one of the reasons you want to know other lawyers, because you can refer business to them and get a substantial fee. You get referrals in PI and employment cases. You don't get them in family law or probate and tax and things like that. But and how do you network? Well, you join bar associations and become active in them. So in my case, 25 years ago, I went to the Consumer Attorneys Association conference in Vegas, which it's 3,000 people go. All the judges go. The defense lawyers are there. It's all personal injury. But I went there and I said, these are my people. They fight the power, just like I fight the movie studios and the record companies. And I said, I'm going to get to know these people. And it took me 3 years of going to the executive committee meetings, raising my hand until the then current president said, yeah, I understand I have to get you on the board of governors, which I did. And now I know all the top PI lawyers in town. In fact, through that's how I met Paul Kiesel. And then Paul Kiesel, I had a class action that was driving me nuts with the client. And I called up Paul and said, you got to help me on this, brother. And together we solved some thorny issues with class actions against the labor unions, the Screen Actors Guild, the Writers Guild, the DGA, etc. Another way you network. And so what I'm telling you all, get on the executive committee of the litigation section or the family law section of the Beverly Hills Bar or LA County Bar or whatever it may be. And I've been trained or told it's not till the fourth time you meet somebody that you really establish a relationship with them and they know your name. And if you're working towards common goals, that's how you're going to get referrals, because there'll be a conflict, or they don't want to work contingency, or they don't like the client, or they don't feel they have the skill necessary. All right, that's enough out of me. Steve?
Neville, I got a quick question for you. Of all the different categories of professionals that refer business to you, what's your number one category of professional? Doctors, lawyers, accountants, wealth managers, psychiatrists, psychologists. What's the number one group that send business to you?
Lawyers.
Paul, what do you think?
Transactional lawyers.
And Paul?
The answer is personal injury lawyers. That's my. It's always odd that why are personal injury lawyers send you a case, but that my people are my people.
So for me, it was the same thing as it was for you, Paul. When I first started practicing, I was doing mergers and acquisition stuff and a little bit of family law. And then I'd be in court, and then the big shots, Dennis Wasser, Neil Hirsch, you name the guys that when we were growing up, which were, Sorrel Trope had a name, his name was on the building at USC. And they would see me in court and they'd say, hey kid, come here. I want to talk to you for a minute. Where'd you come from? What did you do? What you were at Shepherd Mullen? Why are you cocking around in little tiny podunk divorce cases? And the next thing I knew, they were sending me their hand-me-downs. This one's too small for me. I don't have time for a trial. You're a trial lawyer. Can you do this trial? So, Neville, I'm going to just tag on to what you said for a second. I'll throw the ball to Paul. But I find, this is me personally, okay, I went to UCLA undergrad. I went to USC Law School, so I'm a Brogan. And so Monday through Friday, when I got to make a living, I'm a Trojan. But on Saturdays, I'm a Bruin. And I'll tell you, my probably number one source of business that I have are my law school classmates, because they don't do what I do. The year before me, my year, the year after, there's only one other divorce lawyer. It's my partner, Jerry Klein, and he's my partner. And so we have 3 years of classmates at USC. It's a tight group anyway. And so they send us all of their referrals. So for me, my piece of advice on the networking front, if I was going to give one piece of advice, it would be, in addition to getting involved in the community, would be to get involved in your alumni association. Because in order for somebody to send you business, the three of us know they have to know you, and that's easy. You can be Jacob Emrani and put advertisements on TV. They got to like you, and that's easy. You can be Neville and you go to the bar things and you buy everybody drinks and everybody likes you. How do you get them to trust you? And the guys who trust, the attorneys that trust you the most are the ones that you went to law school with, because they saw you in law school. They know everything about you in law school. Now you're 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years out of law school. They know you, they like you, they trust you, they'll send you business. So that's kind of my hot tip. I got some other ones. We'll go around the room a little bit on this networking thing, but I can tell you, if you're just starting your practice, the most likely people that will send you business are going to be your law school classmates. Paul, I'll throw it to you.
So I'm going to say this. I never network for networking's sake. I'm not that kind of person to hand out my card or just sort of shake hands for the sake of shaking hands. I like to do it more intentionally. I like to take on causes that matter to me, that also matter to other people. And when you do that, when you lead in a way, whether it's a charitable organization you belong to, or it's a political campaign you get involved with, it's something external to necessarily the practice of law, that can be an amazing source of bringing business into you unintentionally. But ultimately, you develop those relationships because you're doing really good work. And as a result of that, people begin to think of you to send you the cases. No doubt, results matter. So we live in a different world today, right? Today we live in a world of social media. We live in a world of instant communications, and I'm not so keen on. I mean, I'm an early adopter, but I'm also suing every major social media company in America. I've got $2 trillion worth of market capital on the other side of the V from us because we represent hundreds of children who have mental health issues related to their social media use. So I'm actually very reluctant to use. I don't use social media because I'm suing all these folks and I'm not going to have them track what I'm doing. But I got involved in the social media litigation because it was the righteous case work to do. And that has created, when you're meeting with people and you mention the work you're doing, someone goes, my friend has a son who is, 12 years old and can't get off of the phone. And the phone calls begin to come merely because you're doing work that's important to you and it's important to other people. Neville?
Wait, before we jump to Neville, let me just follow up on that for 1 second. The common theme clearly between the three of us is we have a passion for what we do. So if you're right now sitting in an office at the Sidley firm, and you're making whatever first-year attorneys make, $300,000 a year or $250 a year, but you're pushing a bolt into the machine every day over and over and over, and you're bored to tears, that's because you probably didn't go to law school to do something you weren't passionate about. And if you're passionate about it, I'll work 24 hours a day on something. And I like being a family law lawyer. I never thought I would be a family law lawyer, but it's the intimacy, the one-on-one, that what I do matters. It matters where children go to school. It matters how much money gets passed between parties. It matters how assets are divided. It matters. And it's the same for all three of us. Neville, when you're representing somebody who's been screwed over by a record company, tell us it matters, right? And same thing for us. So I think that's the common theme, right, Paul?
I always say this. It's hard to believe that I'm in my 40th year of practice because it's like a number that doesn't even make sense. My mom's 93 and she's in, knock on wood, great health. And I don't feel 93. If you said I was 18, I feel 18. My body says I'm 93. I feel 18. I do not in any way, shape, or form feel like I've been in this practice for 40 years. I say I haven't worked a single day. And when it becomes work, I'm done. Because I don't need to keep working, but I keep doing what to your point, Steve, I have a passion for, and that's the practice.
All right, I echo what you guys are saying. The thing I'm most proud of in my life is having written the authorized biography of John Wooden of UCLA because of his incredible pyramid of success. And here comes a guy who's not that interested in basketball, writing and learning everything there was to know about college basketball from the 30s to the late 70s. And I did it because of his philosophy, which is that success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you've done your best to be your best. The key ingredients are enthusiasm and hard work and going after a great and difficult challenge. I asked him, what should somebody do if they don't like the job they're at? He says, find a new job as soon as possible. That's what it is. So back to networking, there's the bar associations, but there's Rotary or church or temple, alumni associations, athletic endeavors, wherever you are, you're always on duty and hip to meet somebody who's going to be able to turn you on to a good case somewhere down the line.
Hey, Neville,
So
can
I
I
always
add
tell
on something about? Oh, go ahead.
I tell my young associates, you need to have an elevator pitch. You need to have a 15-second statement of what you do when you meet someone that sticks in their brain. You've got to have that pitch. Steve?
Well, I was just going to say, Neville, is that, you triggered something that's really important for people to understand. And that's, in addition to the elevator pitch, they have to understand that people want to do business with people that are engaged. you know, it doesn't matter what you're engaged in. If you're engaged at Heal the Bay, because remember, you got to get them to know you easy, got to get them to like you easy, got to get them to trust you. And so an engaged person, when you look at the website, you see all the things that they do. If all you see them doing is stuff related to their job, I'm the greatest person, I write articles, I do all this, you might trust them. But if you see them engaged at Heal the Bay, or you see them engaged at American Cancer Society, and you see them taking, as Neville said earlier, leadership roles and those types of things, you're more likely to trust those people, and then you're more likely to give them a piece of business. Whether or not you're, you know, it's kind of funny because people would think that a family law lawyer is B2C, that we're going business to consumer, but we're really like 95% B2B. Like we get very few unsolicited referrals because there are too many people on the internet right now that are advertising, I can do your divorce for $199.99. They're the Earl Scheibs of divorce, right? So very few people are going to find us. And then those people also, when they look at the profile and they see the backgrounds of the people in the firm, they say, oh my God, it's going to be too expensive. So they're not coming to us. So we're actually marketing B2B. We're not marketing B2C, but your website is designed B2C because Neville's going to refer his client to me. What's the first thing they're going to do, Paul?
Your website and check you out. Who are you?
So your website has to be B2C, but your business model is B2B. It's a very confusing, if you're doing anything in retail, if you're a bankruptcy attorney, an estate planner, family law lawyer, criminal defense lawyer, your business model is generally B2B, but your outward projection that you're doing is B2C because you've got to convert the consumer that comes to your website. They've got to, when they get the referral, they got to find all the things that you're engaged in. And the more things that you're engaged in, like the American Cancer Society or Heal the Bay or, you know, the Alzheimer's Walk, the more of those things, the more likely you're going to have a connection with those people. Like for me, I'll tell you a weird one for me. You know, when I was a kid, I was an Eagle Boy Scout. And so when websites first came up, I slapped up Eagle Boy Scout. And then when Google started hitting, all of a sudden I started getting calls from people and they said, you know, I was looking at a lot of people and I'd like to talk to you because I saw you're an Eagle Boy Scout and my cousin was an Eagle Boy Scout or I was an Eagle Boy Scout. And that connection was enough to get somebody to call me.
You know, I had this Tuesday morning, I had gotten an email from somebody saying so-and-so wants to have a coffee date with you. Now, this is somebody that I've seen at
Sorry, still in the room with you or Cindy? Not there anymore.
Cindy's not. It's a man. It's a guy, and he's a family law lawyer, and it wasn't for breakfast. It was coffee. Okay, I said I'll go. I wasn't even completely sure. I guess I'd met him once or twice before, and he says, "Well, this is what I do. I used to work for Steve Mindel, and he told me if I have 6 coffee dates a month, I'm going to be able to build a book of business." And guess what? I have one right now. And I said, well, how do you like that? I know Steve Mindel. And so another aspect is on the website. We get business off the website. Why? Because we're in a rare area of doing a lot of defamation work and invasion of privacy. And people Google and find us, and you know, we've had some significant victories. How did that happen? Because 20 plus years ago, I took on a case against the ABC television network on the use of hidden cameras, and I beat the shit out of them for little old me against a giant, nasty law firm that went all the way to the California Supreme Court and is now studied in 3 case books. And that put me on the map. I didn't know anything about the right of privacy when I took on the case, and I became an expert. And the treatise on privacy is dedicated to me, in part, saying me, Brandeis, and Warren are the great defenders. Anyway, that's enough braggadocio. But the point is, if you do good work, they will flock to your door overall. So that's and another thing is to be nice to opposing counsel, because you want to settle the case, and maybe you'll end up representing opposing counsel, or their client will hire you, which I'm sure has happened to all of you people as well.
Let me just expand on that to say this. Be nice to everybody. You never know what goes around, comes around. The hallmark of being a good trial lawyer, in my view, is being a courteous, professional, appropriate lawyer. And that's how you'll develop a reputation, a better reputation than otherwise. And as an ABOTA member, fellowship and collegiality is the hallmark of an ABOTA member, and that's both plaintiff and defense bar. You must remember that you got to be professional. In fact, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege here. One of the things I've always done is taken a role in the outside the practice political world that we live in. And I'm hosting a rally. It's now called a forum, what I hope to be the largest virtual gathering of lawyers in America. It's happening this Tuesday, April 15 at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I've got 5 speakers that are going to be on the program. It's going to be Erwin Chemerinsky. It's going to be a Judge Esther Salas, who many of you may know that name. Her son was brutally shot to death in 2020. She's a federal judge, still is a federal judge, and she pissed off a defendant who came to her house and killed her son, shot her husband, didn't get her. She's one of the 5 speakers. We've got Ken Feinberg, who was the special master in the World Trade Center bombing cases. We have federal judge Paul Grimm, who is now a Duke University professor. And finally, we have an amazing Justice Eileen Moore. Justice Moore is in the 4th Appellate District, and she was a former lieutenant in the military during the Vietnam War. All of them talking about the rule of law, the dangers we have as a country if we're not speaking up as a lawyers in the community, and the risk to judges right now with what's happening. So on my website, just simply go to Kiesel, Kiesel.law, and you'll see a link to sign up for Tuesday morning's forum. Sign up, spend 30 minutes just listening to lawyers across the country talking about the importance of the rule of law, the constitutional obligations we have as attorneys, and there's been too much silence in the last 4 weeks from the legal community. This is a nonpartisan event, but it's important that we as lawyers speak out about what's been happening in the world that we're living in. I represented the Austrian Jewish community in the year 2000 for their restitution claims in the Holocaust. And the key thing that Hitler did in 1933, he fired 850 judges, a third of them Jewish, because he wanted to take control of the judiciary, which he ultimately did. Okay, back to our program, Nev.
Okay, so another thing that you can consider and should be doing is writing for the Daily Journal, for example. I have been writing for the last 10 years a quarterly column for the New York State Bar Association entertainment section overall. They asked me to do it. I'm happy to do it. And guess what? I can turn these into articles for the Daily Journal as well. So, you want to keep your name out there as much as possible.
Neville, before you switch off of that for a second. Okay, so let's just do Steve Mindel Marketing 101, right? So Neville's now written this article, and it gets published in the Los Angeles Lawyer Magazine, or it gets published somewhere else. It's a great article. So now the real question that you have with it is, how do you repurpose that article? And what I've noticed about Neville that he does is he gets on LinkedIn and he'll post it on LinkedIn. And he'll say, hey, I just wrote this article, blah, 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 blah. And so now it goes out on LinkedIn. And he'll let that float out there for a couple days. And then he'll go over to Facebook, and then he'll post it on Facebook. And he'll say, boom, 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 boom. And he might, if he mentions, something about somebody in the article, he'll tag that person in the posts that go on both LinkedIn and Facebook. And, a lot of people that are watching this or listening to this right now, you're going to be younger and you're going to say, what the hell? None of my friends are on Facebook. And so I'm not going to do Facebook. I'm going to do Instagram, or I'm going to do these other things, which are all fine. Go to your marketing place. But I just want to remind you that a lot of your potential referral sources, especially if you're a younger or newer attorney that's opening up a practice, are going to be older people like us, because we're going to be sending you our overflow. So even if we're a direct competitor, we might be able to send you the overflow. So you want to make sure that you're marketing in the places where they are. And so now you repurposed it now those 2 times. In the old days, what we would do is we would reprint the article and we would put it into snail mail, and we repurpose it now a 3rd time. But now what we do instead of doing that is we've all created CRM software, some kind of contact relationship management software. And then on top of all the other marketing, Neville's going to go to his referral sources or his existing clients that he has in his CRM, and he's going to send an email blast out to them saying, hey, here's the latest article that I just wrote. And so now he took 3 or 4, 5, 6 hours, maybe grabbed a law clerk to help him write it. So he wrote this article and now he's repurposed it. And now he's gotten 4, 5, 6 different hits from that same article. And that's where the money is in marketing. The classic example is those damn super lawyer ads. We love those things. We run an ad in super lawyer or whatever it is, but the real money is how you repurpose that after you get that, after you have bought that ad.
You know, a recent phenomena has been LinkedIn, which I'm hearing from some people, they say is the single most important marketing aspect of social media overall. And what I'm seeing, which is also intriguing, are lawyers who are saying things like, let me tell you about, I'm going to be bringing this case against Uber, and this is what you need to know. And if you ever need any help, call me. And I also seen this lawyer saying, you want to know how to be successful? Da 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 da, or this is how you take a deposition. In other words, it's great promotion for this person to get referrals overall and to keep his or her name out there. They don't go on for more than 2 or 3 minutes, but that works as well. How do I know Steve Mindel? I know him because somebody told me about this group called Provisors, which is a networking group, the purpose of which is to get business for everybody who's in the particular group. They spend a lot of time at each session, and it meets once a month in Steve Mindel's offices. In fact, he does it 2 times a month. He's in 2 groups overall. And so through that, I've gotten some business overall, but I've also referred a heck of a lot of good business in bankruptcy, family law, PI, whatever it may be, through people I've met through that group as well. And that's not the only group, but that's probably the most prominent one that's out there. BNI is another one. I know that, but to be in the provisors group, they basically want professionals. So it's a good selection of people overall. Paul?
Did you ever?
An observation for you a second. Folks, you're looking at 2 of the most successful lawyers in California, and what you're hearing them both say is they continue to market.
Always.
They're still going out. They're still thinking about, how do I develop my practice? Because here's the thing: you can't ever have the success go to your head. You have to continually move your practice forward. The minute you get lazy, the minute you kind of step back, someone else is going to be out there doing it better, doing it longer, doing it harder than you. You must always, and this is a good lesson, constantly think about building the practice and not being happy where you are, because that lasts for just a brief period of time.
You know, I tell students, you got to go out and network. And what does that mean? That means right now in law school, be friends with, get to know everybody. I still get referrals from people in law school. But what I also say is, when you go to events, how many times have you been to an event and you go, oh, I really think that person is attractive. I wish I was talking to him or her, whatever it may be. And the other person is thinking the same damn thing. Well, you know what? Go over there and put your hand out. Ask the girl to dance. You can't be shy. You've got to be open. That's why you're at the darn thing as well. And the other thing I tell them is, how many times have you been moping around the house and your friend calls you up and says, are you going to this event or whatever it may be? No, I don't want to go. And then you go and you have the most marvelous time of all. So, get out there is the point. Steve.
Paul, let me follow up on your thing. It is really funny that law firms are a business. Now, sometimes you don't make a profit in your business. You didn't start it out to be a not-for-profit business. It just turns out that way. But it is a business, and people think that there's something magical about being a doctor, magical about being a lawyer, that you don't have to operate a business. But you are operating a business, and you have to have a budget, and you have to figure out where you're going, and you have to have a strategic plan. When I opened up the law offices of Starving Steve, my wife asked me, what's the plan? And I said, oh, here's my 5-year plan. In 5 years, I'm gonna grab some partners. I'm gonna be 8 to 12 lawyers in 5 years. And that's exactly what we were. And she looked back and she said, oh, here's your stupid little plan. Look at you, right on the plan. And there's a rule. Most businesses operate under an 80-20 rule. It's like 80% of the business is brought in by 20% of the lawyers. 80% of your profit is 20% of your clients. Well, the 80-20 rule also works with regard to your referral sources. Every year, 20% of your referral sources are going away. And so, as Paul said, if you are not engaged in actively growing your business every single day, 20% of your referral sources are going away, which means your volume is going to go down. And so everything that Paul said was spot on, that the reason why at 66 years old and like Paul practicing 40 years now, it's like bizarre to me. The reason why we go out and do these things, well, first of all, we like it. We love it, actually. I love the friendships and all that stuff. I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it. But really and truthfully, I'm afraid of those 20% of my business. I will become a dinosaur in 5 years if I'm not renewing those referral sources. Every day I'm mentoring some, third-year law student, first-year law student at USC, because those are my future referral sources. I'm always giving back to the community, and shockingly, that thing, cast your bread on the water, it comes back. I don't know, Paul, Neville, what do you think?
Well, what I said, I will talk to anybody who wants to call me, and they do, to say, for example, I was on a executive committee meeting of the entertainment section of BHBA, and somebody who wants to get into the business contacted me and said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yes, I will. I'll talk to you. Here's where maybe a job opportunities or wherever it may be." I do it because, one, it's the right thing to do to give back to the community, and two, it's great PR for me overall. And so I will talk to almost anybody. And my favorite story is the guy who called me up and went to some school in Missouri and wanted to talk to me. And finally he said, "Well, I have to tell you, you're my hero." I said, "All right, brother, let's have lunch." And I told him where a job was, and he got it. But people like to talk about themselves, I've learned overall, and all they can say is, "No, I don't have the time." But and also, people from your when you talk about your alumni, your law school, it's not just the people who are in your class, it's also the law school itself overall. If you're known to the teachers there, the professors, et cetera, they have sent us business, or they have also sent us their good students to say, "This is somebody who you need to pay attention to." So that's another thing. But you're not going to get a job unless you're there, or a client. And so what I did was I joined the Beverly Hills Bar Association 15 years ago. It took me 3 years to become the chair of the entertainment section. And that's just a beautiful job, because all I do is throw softballs for people. We put panels on, and we make everybody look good. And through that, I meet all these transactional lawyers and other people, and they say, "Thank you very much." I know you're very active, Steve, and you too, Paul, in bar stuff.
Well, let's move from bar stuff for something else too, which is national associations. Paul, are you a member of any of the national associations?
A member of a BOTA.
A BOTA. So tell us about what the advantage is of going to a conference in Chicago or Detroit or Denver or something like that. What do you get out of that?
Well, thanks. It's a good question, Steve. And it's really just a part of doing business and learning your own craft and meeting people who are on the defense side, on the plaintiff side, who may be doing things a little bit differently than the way you're doing it. You'll learn a tremendous amount of positive information by meeting people around the country and learning how they're doing different things. But additionally, you're developing relationships across the country with lawyers who may have California's the fifth largest economy in the world. And lots of people come to California and get hurt and need help. And lawyer in Chicago or in New York or Miami, when they need to call a lawyer to make a referral, will call you. Meanwhile, I've got an assemblywoman calling me. I'll mute my phone for just a second.
So Neville, tell me about your national things. Are you doing anything nationally?
Well, I'm in a group called Public Justice, which is about 30 lawyers on staff that does important litigation in a variety of areas, environmental and class actions and consumer stuff. It's in Washington, D.C. and in Oakland. And so I network with those people as well. I'm in a BOTA.
I'm in this group called the AML, the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, and the IAFL, the International Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. And Paul, you said you have to develop a unique practice area. And Neville, you up that a game when you told us about the slander suit that goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. So when I got into the AML and the IFL, one of the reasons why they brought me in was because I do a lot of premarital agreements. I probably do 40 to 60 premarital agreements every year. And between me and Chris Melcher and a handful of other people, Dana Lowy over at Myrles, and we're kind of the lead. Oh, the people at Wasser's office. We're kind of the top 5-10 lawyers in the state on premarital agreements. And having that moniker and then jumping into an international group like the IFL or the AML, the American Academy or International Academy, I can't tell you, there isn't a week that doesn't go by that I don't get some kind of international case that comes through from the IFL and at least 2 or 3 out-of-state cases that come in from the AML. Just as an aside, Paul, our business is probably a lot like yours in that they're one-offs, right? We do a divorce, we do a prenup, they're one-offs. And so our case volume with 25 attorneys or so, we've got to bring in between 300 and 400 cases a year in order to maintain the energy, right, for the firm. And we don't do any advertising. We don't have any bus benches. We're not on TV. We don't do any of that stuff. It's all word of mouth, handshake marketing. And those international groups, the national groups, it's like you said, Paul, first of all, there's like 15 attorneys in the national group, and we get together once a month or so and just chit chat about how we're running our businesses. How do we deal with our associates? How do we deal with our malpractice insurance? How's that super lawyers program running for you? All that kind of thing. And so that's invaluable. And then the backside of it is these are people that I'll trust you intimately, and then you end up getting business. So I'm a big fan of, if you're in a practice area, like if you're a probate lawyer or trust and estates person, there are national organizations for that. Get engaged in that. If nothing else, get engaged with the ABA, the American Bar Association, and go to their conferences. They have conference every year for those who ski and Vail, and it doesn't suck.
Yeah, the National Copyright Society has a conference every year, East Coast, West Coast, and we go to the West Coast ones, and I network with those people as well. I've been invited twice to the annual conference of entertainment lawyers in Austin, Texas, to go down and give them a talk. And so, yeah, I'm willing to go anywhere and meet with anybody. And I'm friends with the top libel lawyers in UK and Ireland as well. And occasionally we get business we can do for and with each other. And then if you have an interesting case, it'll make the papers, maybe the New York Times or the LA Times, for example. I got quoted twice in the last month by the LA Times on the front page, and they called me to say, well, what's your opinion about this particular aspect of litigation that's going on? I thought that's very nice, and that's because I have a nice relationship with the paper.
Well, Paul, that's a good thing. Paul, do you have a publicist that you use, or have you ever used a publicist in the past where you're paying somebody to get you on the national media front?
I think kind of much like you, Steve, I've done no advertising. I've never really done any marketing per se, other than just my own kind of experience in the world that we live in. There have been occasions where I've used a public relations type company on discrete tasks of things. For example, this program we're doing on Tuesday, the Speak Up for Justice campaign, there's actually a Washington, D.C. public relations agency. We are working with the Federal Judges Association, the FJA. The judges are a part of what we're putting together. So they have their own agency that's getting out to the New York Times. In fact, on Saturday, CNN, MSNBC, and ABC News will be running stories about what we're going to be doing on Tuesday, because it's going to get the word out to the community that none of us really have the ability to do. These agencies are very good at targeted marketing. Good point.
Well, I can just tell everybody an interesting story for me. I don't know, probably 15 years ago, I got on TV for a couple of things. There were some big family law cases that came down, and the local media picked me up and brought me out. And I have a background in radio and TV, so it was really easy for me to do that. And then the next thing I know, I get a call from a publicist, and she says, I saw you on Channel 5 News. She goes, I could get you placed in different things, And I was like, well, tell me about how you do it. And she explained it to me. Her name's Cherie Kerr, and she's really super public relations person. replacing people and media things. And I found that to be really useful. Like right now, I backed down on it pre-COVID because we were so busy going through COVID. I think most law firms right now are experiencing a shortage of consumer type lawyers because the big firms have sucked up all the lawyers. So consumer lawyers like the three of us, it's hard to find really good young attorneys that want to come on board. So we've been just backed up. So I haven't used the publicist probably since 2020, I guess. But prior to that, it was interesting. I like the isolated spots of getting on Good Morning America or the Today Show. On Entertainment Tonight, I was a weekly. They would call me every week. It was just nice things. So anyway,
But on the
that's
other hand,
another idea.
I love my anonymity. To be recognizable, Neville, to actually someone see me and know who I am scares the hell out of me. I like being, what I do like is they'll know my name. They'll hear Paul Kiesel and hopefully it comes up with a reasonable thought in their mind, but they don't necessarily know what I look like. And in this world we live in, having a lower profile in my world is better than not.
Another thing that happens is that I've seen some firms do, which is a newsletter for clients on here are recent trends in the entertainment business or cases that you ought to be aware of overall. Another thing Mr. Mindel does, which is very nice, is he gives you a nice gift at Christmas. So I got some tasty wine from him this year as well, and he didn't have to do it, but you know, I like getting gifts and keeps him in my mind overall.
I haven't given Neville a good gift good enough for him to freaking remember I gave him a gift, but that's fine. I have to up my game. I got it, Steve.
That's right. That's
Paul,
right.
there's a book out there that a friend of mine, David Ackert, who does a lot of consulting for law firms, David sent it to me because, you know, I'm pretty well known for my gifts because every year what we try to do is give a gift that's some kind of functional thing, like a platter or something. And we'll hire an artist. We'll hire that artist in January, February, or March, tell them we need 400 items, custom handmade by October, November, so we can get them out. So I'm known for those kind of things. We put a little article about the artist, and then I handwrite a card thanking you for all the referrals and talking about our relationship from it. Carl Terzian style for guys that are our age that remember Carl Terzian.
The point of that is these are one-off cases, and the only way that you can replenish them is have the lawyers that are not one-off lawyers. So doing what you're doing, Steve, creates that engagement that the cases are coming in. They're not referrals from the couple you represented. It's from the lawyer who sent you the case.
It's B2B, and so there's a book that's out there. David Ackert gave it to me. It's called Giftology, and it's the art of giving. And it's how you do it and the presentation and everything. It's just, and David sent it over to me and he goes, Steve, did you help write this book? Because it's like, and I'm reading the book and I'm going, oh, this is me. Oh, I love this. This is great. I now understand what I'm doing because they connect all the dots in your brain about how you gift things to people. And how you gift people things is really important. If you ever watch old movies about Japanese businessmen exchanging business cards, it was a ceremony. And, you know, there is something to being respectful about your, you know, it's easy enough, like in Paul and in Neville and your businesses, you can pay referral fees and all that stuff. I can't. And so there's, you know, that's one thing. Everybody loves a big check. Believe me, they like a big check more than they like a platter. But at the end of the day, people want to be respected and acknowledged when they send you business, because it's the biggest honor they can give you is to refer you their cousin, brother, nephew, best friend, that because they trust you. That's a huge thing. I could never sell office buildings because the close rate is too slow. You take 10 years to close a deal. I need to close a deal every day. I want to close a deal every day. I want to close a deal.
You know, I think the takeaway for folks as we're beginning to wind down the clock is that the three of us love the work that we do and come to work every day excited most days to do what we're doing. Right, Steve?
Oh, 100%.
Right, Neville?
You bet.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, I love my job, I don't love the work I'm doing, I find something that is your passion.
Yeah, I read that 30% of all lawyers can't stand it and are only doing it to make a living or mark time. So there's got to be something else to do. I want to say this also, that's important. Coach Wooden says the most important word in the English language is love, followed by balance. And so all of you out there need to lead a balanced life and have other interests and stop and smell the roses and don't work too hard. As I was talking to a priest one time, I said, I can't work 7 days a week. I've tried. And he goes, well, it violates the 10 commandments. What do you mean? You have to respect the Sabbath. I said, that's my favorite commandment from now on. So I worked too hard in the early years of my life and I regret it. So take a lesson.
Hey, Neville, let's each take a minute and do a wrap up. Who wants to go first? Who wants to go last?
You can
I'll
go
go
first.
Okay, I'll go first. This is what I heard everybody say today. I heard that the thing that gets me up in the morning, gets Paul up in the morning, gets Neville up in the morning is that we are helping people. When I was at Shepherd Mullen, I could not care less about Xerox fighting, Exxon over some piece of property. It was irrelevant to me. There was no passion to me. It wasn't helping. But when I help somebody with their children's issue or their financial issues in their divorce, and I can create something that nobody else did because I do a better tax strategy, makes me happy. Networking, get involved because people do business with people that are successful. And so get involved, get engaged, do your things. I heard law firms are businesses. So treat your law firm like a business. When you open up your business, get somebody to help you, get a consultant, get an accountant, get lawyers, do it right. Don't set it up half-ass because nobody wants to do business with a half-ass lawyer. So do it right, set it up. And then the last thing that I picked up from this is if you want to be identified, then create something that's unique. Paul is not a civil litigator. He is a specialist in, returning and bringing back things to people that had stuff taken away from them, their livelihood, their mobility, whatever it is. That's what Paul specializes in. I'm doing divorces. Neville is doing very high-end things with the entertainment world, with trademark, copyright, patents, with, enforcing things. So create a brand for you so you can do Paul's 15-second elevator speech.
All right, never stop learning. Keep up with the advanced sheets. Following what Steve is saying is that your job is to give advice. That means you better know what the hell you're doing and keep up with the latest trends. And if there's one constant in our business, it is change. And you should be enjoying our business because it's the culture and society as it evolves overall. It is so interesting. You meet so many interesting people, even if it's in conflict. I meet so many people who don't, have no interest in meeting me because I'm deposing them or suing them, but I still have a good time and hopefully they have a good time and we can do it in a somewhat jocular manner. So the bottom line is, as I said before, enthusiasm, hard work, and going for it. Paul?
So
Final word.
the blessing of going last is I can say what the two of you said really encapsulates everything that I would actually tell this group. Find your passion, enjoy life every single day. Don't settle and just constantly think about what the future looks like, Steve. Have your checklist and go for it. And
Or, as Steve Mindel advises, 6 coffee dates a month, folks. All right. Thank you all. It's been marvelous. I know we had a good attendance and thank you all for staying through.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.